It's like 2:30 in the afternoon. Let's go take a midday photo, long exposure, and try to get some drama. It's pretty stormy out, kind of clearing, clear skies are coming, clouds should be moving pretty good. So let's see what we can go get. Been watching this container ship. Not quite sure if you can see it out there. Kind of waiting for that guy to pass. Probably got another 10 minutes or so. The clouds are moving, they're moving south, so they're kind of cutting across the scene. We'll shoot maybe like a 2-minute exposure, just get a nice drift of clouds, and that'll smooth out all this water. And I have these pylons, add a little foreground interest, and wouldn't you know it, just as I kind of turned around after doing the whole little dialogue there, that vessel ship, sure enough, is right in the way, and the perfect light just hit the city. So frustrating. Let's hope that that window opens back up. The sun's gonna be right about there. It's kind of breaking through the clouds right now, you can see, but it's hitting the city. It's hitting the city pretty nice right now, just right across there. So hopefully that container ship goes away. I think I'm screwed. That ship, I think they're parking there. The composition is dead center, right where I'm at. Right in the middle of my composition. You want to talk about a game of patience? Alright, I think we might be in luck. It looks like it's just about clearing. I did lose the good light on the city. The clouds are still looking good, and hopefully we get another little break and it'll illuminate the city a little bit. But while I have time, waiting for this to pass, I just want to talk a little bit about what I'm trying to do here. If you're like me, you just like to shoot photos, and unfortunately, you don't always have mornings and sunsets and stuff like that. I mean, those are the best times to shoot, but sometimes you just want to get out, shoot some photos. So what I like to do is I have a 10-stop ND filter, and what that does is it allows you to shoot long exposures even in harsh daylight. I mean, today's not really harsh light, but it's midday and we can still get some nice long exposures, dramatic cloud movement, kind of make the water all smooth, and just gives a different, unique look to the photo. I think we're almost there. I'm gonna get set up and just hope that the light comes, and maybe we'll get this shot. We're shooting. It moved. I put on the 10-stop neutral density filter, and I have a nice little leading line here with these pylons right into the city. Probably hard to tell on the camera, but there's a nice light coming through the city right now. So let's go ahead and take this shot. Now what I've done is basically I took a test shot to get my metering, and from that I was able to get my shutter to about 1/20th of a second. That way I know with this app, the Lee Filters app, with a 10-stopper, I can shoot roughly about a minute exposure. I had to bump my aperture down to, I'm shooting about f/20, so I typically don't like to shoot that small of an aperture. In this case, I kind of needed to keep the scene as dark as I could so I can maintain about a 1-minute exposure with this 10-stop on. So let's shoot this while the light is good. And what I'm doing here is I have a remote timer. Hold up. A couple things I didn't explain very well in this portion of the video. So let's talk about that test shot. Not only was I metering for light, but I was also making sure to compose the image and check the focus before I put the filter on. So you cannot see through the lens once you have the filter on. Very important that you do those things before. And the second thing I wanted to talk about was the camera setting I'm using. So I'm actually shooting this photo in bulb mode. So what that is I have the wireless remote and I'm able to hold it down for as long as I want. So in this case I was setting my timer on my phone to 1 minute and then I would release, and that's how I was getting that long of an exposure. So you do need a cable release remote. You can do wired ones or wireless. I think a lot of cameras now, they also have the phone app that you can use. There's a lot of ways to get around spending very much money on these things. You can pick them up on Amazon for $15. So it's not really expensive, but it is a must-have when you're doing these long exposures. So let's get back to it. Just setting the timer on my phone, holding it for a minute, and let's go. I think we're just about up to time. Let's see what we got. Exposure looks pretty good. When you're doing these long exposures, you kind of get impatient, you want to walk around and stuff, but try not to step around your tripod. That way, eliminate any shake or anything like that. Especially with long exposures, you're going to see any camera movement. So always just, if you're going to start pacing, get away from your tripod. Pretty excited. It looked good in the back of the camera, but you know, you got to wait till you get home and get it on the computer to make sure that you really got it. Something a little different. I don't typically shoot that much this time of day. Wow, it is cold. You know when you're just concentrating so much on something and once you stop, you realize just how cold it is, your hands, your toes, everything. So I've got the foot heater cranked in the car, just trying to warm up. The light's looking pretty good on the city right now, so I'm trying to get motivated to go to another spot here, and let's just move on. Let's go, let's warm up and get this going. Alright you guys, obviously I'm back home and I did stop by one more location. I took one shot, a vessel started moving in, it was cold, so I left. I'm home now. But gives me an idea, gives me some time. I'm gonna put together a quick little tutorial on editing this photo. So let's jump into Lightroom and get it going. Now I'm gonna do a pretty quick edit on this, just one for the sake of time, two to show you guys. It's pretty simple to just do a nice edit on a photo without getting too carried away. So right out the gate in Lightroom, something I always forget to flip on is these two, especially the enable profile corrections. Now Lightroom has preset a ton of lenses, and that just helps, especially with this ultra wide Tamron 15-30. As you can see, a little bit of distortion there, but it also gets rid of that vignetting that you see. So very important to click those two, and I try to make it a habit in my workflow to do that first. I have already done one thing. I got rid of all the spots that are going to be in the image. So for the sake of time, that is the only edit that I've done to this photo. Right away, I want to go ahead and crop this. I know I'm going to crop it kind of tight. I don't have the focal length and filter system for how I really wanted to shoot this, so I'm just going to go ahead and bring that in a bit and kind of want to center up these two with this point here, but I'm also keeping in mind the gap. So the Smith Tower ends right here, Space Needle there. I like to keep it pretty even. I think that looks pretty good there. And I also, whenever I crop, I try to keep in mind, if I can, with the sky. So the darker parts of the sky I like to keep towards the top, and that kind of gives a natural vignetting to the photo to keep your eye where I want you to be, right around the city in this area. And I'll show you some adjustments we'll do to fix that as well. So that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and bring down the highlights a little bit. Now I am noticing this photo has a little bit of a cool look to it, the temperature. I'm gonna make that a little more how the day was, and I feel about 7500 should do it.
So that just adds a nice little glow and warms up the photo just a little bit, because you do get a little color casting using those 10-stop neutral density filters. And let's pop a grad on here. So a graduated, this is equivalent to like a graduated filter on your, that you would put over your lens. Fortunately, I didn't have one, so we can kind of make it up a little bit in Lightroom. Never as good as the real thing, but got to work with what you have. So let's bring that down just a little more. That'll kind of give a little more drama to the clouds. So we'll just keep that, maybe bring these highlights down on it a little bit too. I don't want to get too carried away right out the gate. Subtlety is everything with editing. You want to start small, minimal adjustments, and just kind of work over the photo. These blacks, we'll kind of bring that down, give it a little more contrast. Whites up just a bit. And what you can do here, a little trick, if you're not familiar with, you don't want to clip your whites. And what I mean is basically blow out your whites, overexpose, anything like that. Here's an example. So when I have that on, that gives me a warning. Hey, this is pure white, solid white, no information. So you want to be mindful of that. So it's good to turn these on and just kind of get an idea of where you're at with total white versus, same with the darks or your blacks. As you can see, this is total black where these little blue speckles are. And I'm okay with that because I am not too worried about detail in that little pylon. Let's get a little look back here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's play with these curve adjustments now. Kind of bring that up. And what you want to kind of do, this is your mids right here. You want to almost make an S. Depending on how much contrast you want in your photo. But as you can see, it's very subtle. But what a difference. As that just brings in, I'm really trying to focus the good lighting on these buildings here. And really, that's what I really enjoy about this photo, is that sunlight hitting the front parts of these buildings. So I don't want to lose that, and I want to kind of emphasize that a little more. So just trying to be mindful and kind of create a vignette. So that looks pretty good there. All right, I think the color ranges look pretty good. One thing I also like to do with my yellows is add a little bit of orange to it. So you'll do this in your hue, saturation, and luminance, HSL. So right now I'm in hue, and I can adjust just how orange I want my yellows to be. And I'm going to keep it pretty subtle because I'm going to probably, yeah, let's try a little split tone on those highlights. And that'll give just a little, very subtle. You don't need much because you can get too carried away. And if you're into that style of stuff, that's where you can do that at. But I like it to be a lot more how the day was and have a warmer glow to it, because keep in mind, we did shoot this midday, but I am kind of tricking the eye into believing that this was probably shot later in the day, maybe closer to sunset, where the light has a little more orange glow to it than that harsh yellow. But pretty straightforward. Another thing I like to do is back off a little bit. So go small and just kind of look at the photo, how it all plays together. Is there any really dark spots, you know, anything that just kind of catches your eye in a negative way with the whole photo? I am feeling like there's a lot of contrast in the city, so I might bring up these blacks a little. And I might actually bring up the midtones just a touch. See, it's just very subtle movements, but creates quite a difference. Okay, I might even take it back even further. Now this will help, I feel like this helps a lot for social media, especially Facebook, and I typically wouldn't post crop like this for Instagram, but some people do. But this gives you kind of a thumbnail, again, looking at the whole presence of the photo. How do all the colors play together? How does everything look? Is there any spots that are just either a hot spot or just way too dark? But I think it kind of all flows well together. So let's go ahead and Bring it back up. So that looks good. Let's double check this. So another thing too, let's do this. Let's back out and let's pop on. Now this is how I like to make basically a vignette. You can do that. They have a preset vignetting, but I like to manually do it. I just kind of bring down, oops, I have it inverted. I just like to bring, see, as you can see how that works. And what I like about doing it this way, you can control and you can keep an eye. So obviously red is where the effect is applied. So you can just kind of widen that out a little. If I wanted to kind of bring the eye down, keep the sky darker, really get that dramatic feel. So again, just keep it very subtle. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, so pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and oops. Just check, make sure things are sharp and good. All right, so there we have it. Pretty simple, straightforward. Highlights, shadows. Actually, I didn't even adjust the shadows. I guess you could a little bit. And you'll notice one thing with these long exposures is, so these pylons here are moving, and so they get blurred. There's not a lot you can do about that. I mean, you could shoot another exposure and then add them in Photoshop with them sharp and a lot faster exposure speed. I didn't want to do that for the sake of, that's just the way this photo comes out. It's natural, it's just right. So there are options, however, it depends on how carried away you want to get. But happy with this photo. I think it looks pretty good right here. A midday photo taken to look dramatic and almost have a late day look to it. And that just shows the power of using the 10-stop neutral density filter.